If you're looking for card ideas that are not too florally or too pink, this video is for you. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and I have a couple of products left from the Simon Hurley release, which collaborated with Spellbinders and Ranger ink. And these two items are really perfect for creating some cards that don't involve flowers and don't involve pink. So let me show you the stamps, dies, and stencil that I'll be working with today. This is the Simon Hurley for Ranger Succulent stamp set, and the dies were collaborated with Spellbinders so that you no longer have to fussy cut out his amazing stamps. Now these are layering stamps. You can just color them in if you want, just use the outline, or you can color by stamping the layers. There's also a hugs die that is separate from the stamp set. This is the Sedona Scene Maker stencils, and it's two stencils. You can see there's either a sun or a moon, some birds, some cacti, and some mountains. So there's lots of things that you can use to create silhouette scenes. Now let's use those supplies to make some cards. First, we're going to use the Succulent stamp set and dies to make some really clean and simple basic cards, and we're not going to use any pink and we're not going to use the flowers. So first I'm going to stamp the outline of this image, and I'm going to actually stamp it in alcohol marker safe ink, because even though I'm going to layer up the cactus with some Viper dye ink from Simon Hurley, I am going to color the pot in with some alcohol markers. The great thing about these layering stamps is they're very easy to line up. You can see that I also used another color of green, and I love the effect that that gives you very simply and easily to color that cactus in. I'm going to use my Ohuhu markers so that I have a brush tip on one end and a fine point tip on the other end. And I've shared before that my favorite way to color in is something to always like have the light source in the center. So the darkest spots are going to be on the sides and the bottom. And I do that because then I don't have to remember which direction the light source is coming from and which direction the shadows will sit on. It's always going to be in the center for me. So I am using three different colors. One is kind of an orangey color, one is kind of a corally color, and one is kind of a brownish color. So I just continue to add the dark colors on the edges and then blend them out towards the center, and that creates what looks like a terracotta pot. Once the coloring's all done, I'm going to hold the die in place with some pixie tape and then cut that cactus out. I'm going to layer some white cardstock over some what looked like terracotta cardstock to me, and then I'm going to stamp one of the sentiments from the stamp set. And there's some great sentiments that could be used for both girls and boys, men and women, so I really just thought they were very versatile. So this one just says you're looking sharp, and then there's the image of the cactus, which I popped up on some foam tape. So we're going to do the same exact thing with a different plant or cactus or succulent from that stamp set. This time I am starting with the Overzealous ink, and I'm just stamping it multiple times. And that's just a total reminder when you don't have a ton of, say, different greens, but you want something to look a little different, just try multiple stamping. See if you can get a darker green from that. And then I'm going to color this pot in with the Ohuhu markers again. This time I'm going for blues. And as you can see, again, the edges or the sides and the bottom are my darkest areas, and the center will remain the lightest area where I'll keep that highlight. So at the beginning, I don't color anything in the center, I leave it white. This way, when I do finally color over it, it will remain the lightest part of the image, and that will be where the light is. I'm gonna hold that in place with pixie tape again and cut that out. I'm gonna put some white cardstock, again 4 by 5 1/4, over some teal color cardstock. I thought it went with the pot really well, and then pop up the pot, and then this sentiment just says, "So proud of you." So these sentiments and images really work well no matter who you're giving these cards to. For this card, I did stamp the outline in black, again, alcohol safe ink, and now I'm going to layer some Overzealous with some Weeping Willow. And you can see me using my finger just to get rid of any harsh lines between the two colors. I don't want it to look like it's a harsh line. I just want it to look like it's blending together. So that really helps me to create different colors as well. You can blend these dye inks a little bit. Now with this one, I did not test this color before I started in. You know, I generally like to start with the lightest color and then add some dark color to it and then blend it out. I started with a very, very dark color, so I was like, I definitely can't go much darker than this, so I had to go lighter, and it still worked out just fine. These Ohuhu markers blend out really easily and well. I'm using the brush tip there, and then I'm going to hold the die in place with Pixie tape, and this time I am stamping a sentiment that says, sending good vibes your way. Again, a very versatile sentiment that could be used for lots of different people and lots of different reasons to send the card. Just like with the other cards, I matted it on some colorful cardstock and then popped up the plant on foam tape. For this card, we're going to use the Sedona layering stencils, but first I'm going to create a sunset background. Now, I saw Simon Hurley create with this stencil, and he created a sunset background with a few colors of ink. I am going to use some Distress Oxide inks to create mine because I definitely wanted to add in some purple, and I didn't have a purple in Simon Hurley inks, and I wanted to kind of combine these all together and blend them out. And so I'm working all with Distress Oxide inks here. Once I had my layers of the background sky, I am going to add different aspects of the stencil in a silhouette format. I am using Walnut Stain, which is another Distress Oxide ink, to create the look of the rock in the background. I don't know if you've ever been to Sedona, but the red rock is really beautiful, but of course at night it's going to look a lot darker. So I have that first, and then I'm going to create another range behind it. You can see I'm not coloring all the way down. You're just kind of seeing the tops of those mountains through the sky. I love these little birds, so I used Distress Oxide in Soot, and I just covered them up with that, and they are actually perfect just the way they are. You don't have to do anything special with those. This is either your moon or your sun. I am going to use some lunar paste on that, and I started with gold, and I'm pouncing it on to make sure that I get good coverage over that Distress Oxide ink. Finally, I am going to use some Black Soot Distress Oxide ink for the cacti at the bottom of the card. So I have two over there, and then I'm going to add a third one on the right hand side just by moving the stencil over and lifting that up, and it just, the silhouette of the cacti looks so cool. I decided the moon looked a little dark, so I'm going to add another color of lunar paste on top just to brighten it up a little bit, and then I decided to go in and start messing with those red rock mountains. So I'm adding a little bit of Black Soot here and there. I'm adding a little bit more Walnut Stain. And, you know, as you're going through it, sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, I'm totally messing this up. This looks terrible. Just keep going, because I promise you, when you get to the end, you'll be happy with the outcome. And if you're not, you can always do it again. So I'm going to add a little bit more Black Soot to the bottom there just to darken up some of those colors so that it doesn't look quite so bright, and you can see that it's now a sunset. I'm going to use a sentiment from the Succulents stamp set that says never give up. And you can see right now I'm going in, I think I scratched with my nail part of the chipped sapphire at the very top, and so there was just a line, so I was just fixing that. I'm going to use a ton of anti-static powder tool here. I really should have heat set this first because the ink is just so many layers that it takes a while to dry. So you can see at first my embossing powder, I really had to tap it off, and then I had to use a dry brush as well because it was really sticking everywhere. But once I got that figured out, then I was able to heat set it, and that white embossing powder on all of that color and deep dark background looks so nice. It just pops out, and I love that message, never give up. Again, could be sent to anybody, but definitely has a less feminine look to it than what you normally see from me. I really thought I already had a playlist like this, but apparently I don't. If you're looking for cards to give to boys all the way up to men, let me know in the comments below. I think it's time that we create a playlist. YouTube thinks you might enjoy watching this video next. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. Hold on 1 second. I just like 1 second. I know, I was doing something and I promise I'll get back to it right now. This is how my mind works.